because now I want to talk a little bit more about field security. It's actually not too bad, but it's a little bit tricky the first time you see it. So every field has properties, and the field security property is the one that I want to talk about here. And notice it's just enabled or not. So field security is by default disabled for every field, and once you enable it, then certain things start to light up, and that's what I'll talk to you about now. So how does field security work? Well, basically, if you're an administrator, you can set permissions on a field. You got update, create, and read permissions on a field. And what you'll see is once you create field permissions, field security, you then need field security profiles in order to grant privileges on a secured field to somebody. So what happens is if you turn on field security, okay, you click enable here, by default, no security role will be able to do anything with that field except for system administrator. So then you have to add people, okay, via this security profile mechanism to extend privileges. So then once you have field security profile, you'll be able to grant privileges, okay, and again, anybody that's system administrator will always have full access to all secured fields. That's the way dynamic CRM works, so you can't lock it down from the system administrator. So we've seen an example of this, but I'll go through it more systematically. Work with a custom entity, we'll turn on field level security, okay? And field level security, by the way, only works for custom fields. So if you wanted to lock down something on, say, the user entity in dynamic CRM, an out-of-the-box field, you can't do that. You can only do this with custom fields for now. I think longer term, they'll probably add this for system fields. But now you can only do it with custom fields. So that's a tricky one too, because when I first started working with this, I didn't realize that. I spent a couple of days trying to figure out how can I, secure the, I don't know what field it was I was looking at, but it was a system field, and you can't do that. So you can add it to a form. System administrator will be able to access it. You'll see a little lock there. But if you access it as any other security role without the system administrator security role, you won't be able to see it. It'll show asterisks where the field is. So then you create a security profile, and what happens, this is the tricky part about this, when you create a security profile, all secured fields are going to be retrieved for all profiles. Any profile you create is going to put all secured fields in it, but nobody has permission, so then you selectively grant. I'll take you through an example of this so you can see exactly how this works. If you haven't done this, it can be a little bit tricky the first time. So remember what we did for the break. Go to registrations, and if I make a new registration here, I've got a field on here that has security on it, but it's not on this version of the form. The reason I'm not seeing it, that doesn't have anything to do with field security. It has to do with, I'm looking at the information version of the form. But on the registrar version of the form, there's this locked down field for credit card number. Maybe if you're taking credit cards. Again, this is not a tour de force of application functionality, because it took me about 5 minutes to do this. So this is just as an example. Okay, but you can see the little key by there. Okay, but you can also see I can put something in there. I'm a system administrator. Okay, and I'll just call this registration for Richard. Okay, it's $100. Oops. And I don't have anything in payment method yet, but it's not a required field. So I've got permissions to that. Let's do a save. Okay, and I want to go through this process of securing a field and sort of show you how this works. And let's go to the contact form and do this. And let's customize the contact form so you can kind of see this full cycle. So I'm going to customize the contact form. And let's suppose I want to store a credit card number. Maybe somebody that's a frequent customer, we might want to store it at the contact field. Again, not suggesting that's necessarily the way you would do it, but it's one way to do it. It could work. So I'll call this credit card number. And here's where you turn on field security. By default, it's off for every field, but I'm going to turn it on here. Okay, and then I'll do save and close. And once I create a field like that, if you scroll down here, it'll be here. Here's my credit card number. Okay, and let's suppose I just drag it out and drop it there. Okay, and then we'll do, so I've got that secured field. Do save and close. And we'll publish in a minute, but for now I'll just save and close. Okay, now, what's all this about a secure field security profile and all that stuff? That's so far, if you do that, the only thing that will happen is that if I'm a system administrator, I'll be able to see it, and if I'm anybody else, it's going to just have asterisks, and I won't be able to interact with it. So how do you actually selectively expose that? Well, that's what field security profiles are for, not security roles. Just remember that. This is unusual in that it doesn't have anything to do with security roles per se. Here's where the action is for this type of thing. And notice I've got this registrar security role, or field security profile. Okay? I've already created that. But let's just hypothetically say I have another one. I want to have maybe slightly different things exposed. And I'm anticipating having other fields that will need security on. Okay? And this is going to be maybe a different functional area. Maybe this is going to be maybe vendor manager or something like that. Okay, now if I do a save and close here, all I did was I created a security profile. I didn't do anything with it, but watch what happens though. If I open this up again and I look at field permissions, what you see here is that both the credit card number, the credit card, okay, field, and I probably should have used the same convention, but I can change the display name, that I previously created on the registration field or entity is here, and so is the credit card number field that I created on contact. So the way field security profiles work is every secured field in your entire application, in your CRM organization, gets added to every security profile you create, but it's just that by default there's not going to be any permissions in here. So that's the vendor manager one. Let's look at the registrar. Same thing. Notice that I opened this, even though it was already created, the credit card number field that I just created on the contact record type automatically gets added to this security profile, the field security profile. And here is where I give somebody permissions to it. So if the registrar really needs to be able to look at this stuff, then I'm going to set read to yes, update to yes, create to yes. This is when the record is first created. Obviously this is changing. Okay, this is viewing. It's another scenario that's easily imaginable is that somebody might be able to see it but not change the information in it. So if somebody else changed it, I'll just put yeses in all cases to this. Okay, so for the, notice you can see it here, and I'll do, for this role, I'll do the same thing for the credit card number on the contact record type. Okay, so if somebody has the registrar role, then they'll be able to go in there and see that. They could work with that. And you can follow this through. It works in advanced find as well. If you don't have this security role, but that credit card number is added on an advanced, or say a system view, you'll see the column, but all the values would be asterisked out. You wouldn't see any of the values there. Okay. So then, what can I do here? Well, how do I get somebody into this? How do I grant somebody this role? Well, that's where I go to users or teams. So then if I wanted to just selectively add a user, remember that's what I said, even though it doesn't have, you don't use security roles to give field level permissions, right? You use field security profiles, and then you add a user or a team directly to this. So if I wanted to give a user this, I click add, okay, and I'm going to add Nick, okay, to this, okay, field security profile directly, or I could add a team if I wanted to. If I had a team of registrars, anybody who's on that registrar's team, who's a member of that team, is going to inherit this field security permissions, which in this case I define here. So I found this a little bit confusing just when I first started working with it, just because it's a little bit different from the way dynamic CRM traditionally worked with security roles here, which lets you define security down to the record level, but not any further than that. So now with field security profiles, we can take a step further than that. So if I look at my users again, okay, and I look at Rooster, okay, and the security roles that this person has, he's got the registrar security role, but remember, he hasn't been added to this field security profile. I could add it from here too if I wanted to. So remember, in this case, what does this registrar security role give this user? When Rooster signs in, what he'd be able to do is see the two different versions of that registration form. But he's not going to have permissions to look at that. You won't see that credit card number field will be asterisked out. So it's a little bit more interesting to do the demo like this. So when I show you this, right, keep in mind that what you'd probably want to do from a functional standpoint, if you think of the way that we're designing this application, we'd probably want to do that so that you can actually get to the, that's what it'd be a poorly named security role if, the registrar, if you had a registrar security role and a registrar field security profile that kind of didn't really agree with each other. But just for the purposes of demo, just so you can see what it looks like, I'm going to keep it like this for now, and then we'll fix it. Okay, so that's what's going to happen when Rooster signs in, is he's going to be able to see both versions of the form, but he won't be able to see credit card information. We'll look at that after we take a short break, because I want to save off this recording. It's getting kind of long. But any questions about how you define field security, how you enable field security, how you turn it on or turn on support for it? Questions about that? Okay, let's take the last of our somewhat scheduled breaks. It's right about noon here. We'll go to 1, thereabouts, and I'll stick around after the end of the session for Q&A. But let's take a 10-minute break now. And let's take a 10-minute break. We'll start up again about 10 after 12 Central Time. And then I'll show you this demo, and then we'll talk about some web resources using JavaScript to make forms a little bit more interactive, and some XRM design considerations. Okay? Diving back in here, I want to address a question that came up during the break about any possible relationship between field level security profile, field security, and teams. And I think the question, sort of the general question, is how would you efficiently, go about doing that with respect to business unit? Because everybody remembers, well, I don't know if he remembers, but the way business units work, if I look at business units in my little demo organization here, I just created 2. Okay? So you'll always have the root business unit, and then I created a business unit for East and a business unit for West. And just to sort of show you how this works, I'll create a new business unit here. Suppose I call this Central, and that's all I'm going to do. I'll just do a save and close. Now the thing with Dynamic CRM 2011 is that when you create a business unit, the system creates a default team for the business unit. So if I go to Administration and I look at Teams, I don't see him here, but that's because of this view. If I look at all teams, what you'll see is you'll always have a default team. You'll always have a team for each business unit. And here's the, I just created the central business unit, and you can see the central team here. And furthermore, if you assign a user to a business unit, the user goes on to the team, becomes a member of the team for that business unit. So let's do some user management. I'll go to users, okay, and I'll select a couple of my users, and I'll change their business unit. Okay, selected 2 users. To which business unit do you want to assign them? Actually, let's make these guys central. So if I do that, a couple of things happen. For one thing, they lose their security role, and that's not very nice, so I probably want to go back in there and make their security role back what it was before I changed their business unit. So that is something that you have to remember. Okay, so Nick, I'd probably want to manage your role too, right? I need to give you a security role. That's a security role though, that's different from field level security profiles. Okay. So now I've got those options there, and if I go to my field level security profiles, if what I wanted to do was to go to the vendor manager, say field security profile, and add a team to that, well, teams can be teams that I created myself for a specific reason, or you can see here they could also be default teams for a business unit. So Noor, I think the answer to your question is yes. There is, I think from what I understand you want to do, you just don't want to have to recreate. If you're using business units, if you have some sort of a field security issue that should be assigned to people in a business unit, you don't have to maintain that separately because you can use the default team for the business unit. Okay, and every user in the business unit will be a member of that team. Okay, that's one of the sort of hidden little things about Dynamic CRM 2011 security. In addition to having teams be a security principle now, so records can be assigned to users or to teams, you also get that default teams for business units functionality too. So you probably do it for that scenario. Okay, so right now, let's go back to, let's close out on this one. Here's the registrar role. That's, I'm sorry, field security profile. And I've got a user assigned to this role. And so that would mean that when Nick signed in, now it's a moot point because he's a system administrator. But if he didn't have a system administrator security role, this would then give him access to that thing. Okay? And the key point here is that just remember that this other user, I'll sign in as Rooster here in a minute, he is not in that, doesn't have the field security profile. So what does it look like to somebody who is not, okay? Let's go back and look at the registration. You can. So here's my registration entity. And if I customize this, let's kind of review what we have here. Okay, let's customize not the form. I want to customize the, oops, not publish. I'm going to customize the entity. I'm getting closer. So I customize the entity. And I want to look at the forms, just to kind of remind everybody where we are. Remember there's this registrar form, this thing here that has that exposes the credit card and the payment method fields. And if I go to assign security roles for this one, remember I assigned that to the registrar role, right? That's the security role, not the field security profile. So if somebody's a registrar and doesn't have the field security profile, they should be able to see this version of the form, but not see the values in here. Okay, so let's save this record, save and close. Now I'll sign out, and the reason that I don't do this more often is just because you have to sign out and sign back in. It's kind of a tedious process, so I like to sort of minimize the number of times I have to do this. But I'll sign in with my Gmail account, It's associated with the Windows Live ID, so you can, doesn't matter what, you know, email address you're working with, I can sign in. And Rooster is a member of this organization. It's been added as a user, so I'll choose XRM Maps. He's in a security role that gives him permissions to see the registrations entity. And if I go open the form here, I can also see the registrar version of the form, but you can see what the experience is here. Here's a secured field. Now, I've got access to the version of the form that shows it, but I don't have access to that field itself. I just see that I can't make any changes to it. Okay, I'm typing and nothing's happening. I could save other things, right? Change the fee, whatever I might want to do. I could go into advanced find for registrations, and let's do edit columns, and let's add a column to this. Okay, there's the credit card, and I click results. Okay, but you see I don't see any information there. So in advanced find, it doesn't show you the asterisks, it just blanks it out.